But what makes you interesting, complex, unique is not your superpower, in my opinion. It's your vulnerabilities. There are 3 components to storytelling and stories. You must have these 3, otherwise it will not work. Character, want, and obstacle. So you have to have an interesting character that's unique, that feels 3-dimensional and not a character type. They have to be filled with some kind of desire. They want something in their life, and usually they don't get what they want, they get what they need. They need to learn something. You might want fame, fortune, power, romance, but what you have to do is you have to learn things about self-acceptance, generosity, forgiveness. That's what you need to learn. And there's always an obstacle. If there's a want without an obstacle, there is no story, because the obstacle creates the conflict. Your customers want something. They want to move to a different place, a better school for their kids, a quieter neighborhood, more land, more privacy, less land. They're downsizing. They want a forever home. Whatever it is that they want, there's something that stands in their way. So this is good for you to tell your story and the obstacles you overcame and the lessons that you learned, but it's also great for marketing, because we got to figure out who the character we're serving, what their individual needs are. And we talked about this a little bit yesterday up front, which is to be specific. Who is it that you're serving? What is it they want? When we talk about, say, people who are in the health space, I want to serve people who want to be healthier. That's like everybody. Okay, I want to serve people who want to go to the gym. Still a lot of people. I want to help moms get back into their best shape ever so they can feel sexy about themselves. That is a very specific group of people. So this is what you want to do. You want to do what Seth Godin talks about. You want to split the market. You just keep cutting it down until you can see the person in your mind. If you can draw them and predict what they're going to do, that's how narrow you want to be. So that's the goal. Character, want, and obstacle. So who is the master of character design? Like, if we study whoever is good at this, and Jim Rohn said success leaves clues, let's go look for the clues. And I'm just gonna out myself because I don't know many of you. I'm a giant nerd. I'm really into comic books. So this is where this part gets kind of interesting and fun, at least for one person in the room, me. I love comic books. And so the master creator of characters is none other than Stan Lee. He's created some of the most iconic characters consistently. And I don't know if you've seen his talk at UCLA where he describes the origin of how Spider-Man was created. It's a fascinating story. I'll give you the highlights, the cliff notes, okay? He says the editor was like, we need more characters, Stan. We need to write more stories and sell more comics, come up with another character. So he says the hardest thing to do with a character is to figure out their superpower. You start with their superpower. Once you figure that out, things start to fall in place. And this is going to be important for you to take note of. We're going to dive deeper into this in a little bit. So he's sitting there in his room and he's looking at a fly, and the fly's crawling on the wall. He's like, that is a cool power. Wouldn't it be cool if we can get someone to crawl on the wall? So then he says the next part is you have to figure out a name. Okay, and this is also important. You have to figure out your superpower. You have to figure out the name. So it's like Fly Man, the Mosquito Man, Spider-Man. Okay, and then he says we have to figure out some personal problems. So he wanted to make this person not a man, but a teenager, because teenagers have all kinds of problems. So he takes it to the editor and he's like, I have this idea. Spider-Man is like, Stan, it's a terrible idea. People hate spiders, and teenagers can only be sidekicks. They cannot be heroes. What does that guy know? Well, you know the rest of the story. So this is what we pull apart from that story, okay? You have a superpower. He's a wall crawler. His name is Spider-Man, and he has personal problems. This is drastically different than what DC does with their characters and why I think they're failing. Their characters largely are unrelatable to me as a person. I don't want to get into all that kind of stuff. So now I'm going to ask those of you that may or may not know something about Spider-Man, can you tell me Spider-Man's origin story? Does anybody know? I want to just nerd out for you a little bit. I want to tell you Spider-Man's origin story, and I'm going to map it out for you on a story structure so that you'll figure out how to tell your story. Okay, it's fascinating because the more I look into this and I map it to people in the real world, and the ones who do it really well, they understand this either intuitively or they've studied it and figured it out. Okay, so Peter Parker is raised by his Uncle Ben and Aunt May because his parents died mysteriously in a plane crash. We don't know, right? So he's got a lot of love, but he's an orphan already. He's an orphan. He's kind of a scrawny kid, so he gets picked on. He's left out, but he's super smart. So he's ostracized. Immediately, we start to identify with this character, right? So that's his backstory, and this is what we need to figure out with you. Who were your parents? What happened in your early life that started to form who you are and how you think?
You tell me, who is your daddy and what does he do?
This is really important. So he's designing him to be a very specific person, which gives the hero's arc of his story more weight and meaning. Imagine if he was raised by billionaires from his parents that are loving and good looking, and he was the most popular kid in school. Sort of. Sort of. So then what happens to him is he gets bitten by a radioactive spider, and he's like, ooh, something feels weird. And he gains the proportionate strength and agility of a spider. He has also some other extra powers like a spider sense, which is really cool. And this is what we call the inciting incident, the moment his life changes, when he leaves the ordinary world and he moves into the new world. And so you're going to be looking through your life for what is your inciting incident, the thing where everything changes. Nothing is the same again. And the first inclination is, I've been picked on, I've been felt left out. So he walks by and he sees this opportunity to join a wrestling match for $100. And he's like, I could definitely beat this person. So his first instinct is not to help people, it's to help himself. Right? And so of course he beats them and they become friends, all that stuff. And then he gets to put on TV shows and he's getting really self-important right now. He's making money and he's feeling great about who he is. So there's an opportunity for him to use this power for good. So while he's at the TV station kind of being mobbed by fans, a thief runs past and the cop yells, hey, please stop him. He goes, you know what? That's your problem. You do your job. I'm going to look out for me now. So he has a relapse of judgment in stories like if you're an alcoholic, you know what I'm talking about. There's the relapse. And this is kind of an important part to the story where you make bad decisions. You're not a perfect person. It makes the struggle more real, relatable, authentic, and what you achieve even better by contrast. Okay, so he goes home to find out his Uncle Ben has been murdered. So he's filled with rage. So he's gonna put on his costume and go and find the person who killed his uncle. And he does catch him. And then he's horrified to discover the person that killed his uncle was the same person that ran past him in the TV station. What a tragic story. He can't believe himself. He blames himself. This is it. And so from this point forward, he now knows how to use his power and explains a lot about who he is and why he struggles in his life. And then those words that you've heard before, with great power also comes great responsibility. So when I ask people, how does Spider-Man become Spider-Man? Most people say because he was bitten by a radioactive spider. That changed his life, but it wasn't that. It was his uncle dying and his role in that made him who he is. That was his defining moment. So you all here have a superpower. I'll call it your gift because superpower sounds really self-important, but it's your superpower in the language and vernacular of comic books. But what makes you interesting, complex, unique is not your superpower, in my opinion. It's your vulnerabilities. It's your character flaws that really, when you embrace, is your true strength. So we have a backstory, we have an inciting incident, we have a relapse, and we have the resurrection. And if this sounds familiar, it's Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey, The Hero with a Thousand Faces, Dan Harmon's Story Circle, and every other person who's done some version of it again. This video was pulled from a longer talk on personal branding. If you want to learn more, consider joining me in person at one of my upcoming speaking events. Check out the upcoming events page on our website. There's a link in the description below. Hope to see you in the future.